there, and welcome to Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups, innovation, technology, disruption, entrepreneurship. Basically, if it falls under the gambit of the new economy, it's here every weekday on your favorite channel, ET Now at 6 p.m. India has a new unicorn. It is Moglix, a B2B marketplace for industrial products. Moglix is about 6 years old. It was founded by Rahul Garg, a Zoogler. He's going to be joining us live to talk about this important milestone. It should be pointed out at this juncture that Moglix is India's 13th new unicorn this year, 13th unicorn of 2021. It's entered the unicorn club with a big fat check of $120 million from a clutch of investors, including existing ones that are double downing, the likes of Sequoia Capital and Tiger Global we're talking about. Individuals that have believed in the Moglix story include Ratan Tata himself. Joining us now, the man of the moment, Rahul Garg. He started Moglix, like I said, about 6 years ago. Rahul, it's a big day. It's a big milestone. Congratulations. How does it feel now that you've entered the coveted unicorn club?
So thanks a lot. I think it's definitely a big milestone, but I think it's a split mindshare right now today, handling the COVID chaos and celebrating the milestone. So, but definitely a great milestone to the testimony of what we are building and what we intend to build over the next few years.
Absolutely. In fact, I was going through the Twitter timeline of Shailendra Singh, the big boss at Sequoia Capital, and he praised you and Moglix for the role that has been played as far as handling COVID goes, oxygen concentrators. In fact, you've been on ET Now very recently talking about the efforts on that front. But Rahul, today, if we can talk a bit more about Moglix, the journey so far and what lies ahead. It's a big fat check of $120 million. You've said time and time again that your dream is to have a marketplace that is the largest in the world. What do you plan to do with this money? What are the immediate growth plans for Moglix?
So we set out with a simple goal. I think we realized that manufacturing sector, and if you today include also infrastructure combined together, it's a large part of our economy. Manufacturing alone was a $300 billion market and growing to $1 trillion. And I think what COVID has taught us is that if at all, this is the moment in country's history where we need to really think how manufacturing needs to be rejuvenated and be basically accelerated in the country, because we need to become a lot more self-reliant as a country. So I think what last 6 years we have been able to execute and show is that there is this vast opportunity of how the supply chain and procurement is functioning in this core sector for the country, and how using technology, using efficient supply chain, one can deliver phenomenal results for these organizations, both on procurement and sales side. And I think as we visualize ourselves today, we see that we have still scratched the surface. We are today only still capturing maybe less than 1% of what we can be as an organization and the kind of impact we can be creating on the sector in India alone. And with ambitions now to go global with the technology and supply chain capabilities that we have built. I think it's a phenomenal responsibility. We feel that we have been fortunate to be part of during this journey, also transforming the sector and playing some bit of our role in the COVID crisis as well, using the supply chain expertise.
Yes, I've heard you talk about that $1 trillion target in the past as well. Now, COVID, like you pointed out, has changed consumer behavior. That, of course, includes businesses as well. In the last 1 year, business must have grown rapidly. Did you sign on big clients? You already have an overseas presence?
So I think what has happened over the last 1 year, I think one of the big shifts, and I think when you are coming up with early technology, you always have people who are early adopters and people who are naysayers, because they're not very sure how the technology will play out, how the transformation will happen. So you are kind of educating them. And I remember my old days at Google when we were talking to different brands and teaching them how online advertising will become an important portion of their advertising dollars. So I think we went through that journey. What COVID has meant is that from e-commerce being an optional channel or a small channel for companies, every single company in the B2B sector has realized that it is a must-have channel as part of them. Their growth, as part of their competitive strategy, as part of being present as a brand. because there are chances that the offline supply chains may not function or might have hiccups. And if they do not have capability using a platform like Moglix, they may not be able to cater to their customers at all. And that is a significant sort of acceleration of change that has happened in the industry, and I believe for the good of the industry, because what we would have done in typically 2 to 3 years time frame, we were able to do that in 1 year. So we have as a company continued to grow 3x from pre-COVID levels as an organization due to this entire acceleration of e-commerce.
And what about the road to profitability? Is that visible? Are you stretching it? What's the scene?
So we have been, I think, always from day one focused on unit economics. So we have been unit economics positive probably from 5 years of since we existed. I think it was always about how do we as a whole break even as a company. And every single year we have continued to improve anywhere between 5 to 8 percentage points on EBITDA as an organization, with a clear path that in next 18 to 24 months, we should have a break even as an organization. Because today the mantra is still investing for growth as an organization, both in India and globally.
You know, Rahul, everything looks very rosy and easy when someone is successful and they enter the unicorn club. But looking back, there must have been times when, I don't know, were there death-like instances, times when they were really, really tough, when it didn't look like it was going to take off. The reason I'm asking you this is because those anecdotes can really inspire other entrepreneurs, and there are always lessons in those anecdotes.
No, absolutely. And I think there were quite a few of them. I think we see always it's easier to celebrate some of these milestones, but forget all the hardships that might have gone behind it. And I remember 2015, 2016, when we started doing this, we used to have maybe 80% of the people said that, yes, B2C e-commerce has happened, but we are not sure whether it will happen in B2B because we have relationships, there is a business process involved, and overcoming those require a lot of hurdles that are not that easy to circumvent. And I think there were 10-20% believers during that time who believed that we will be the one who will solve for this problem. In fact, interestingly, 2015 to 2017, we used to have quite a few big competitors, much bigger brand names, all of them sort of either vanished, shut down, various modalities bought out. And I think we kept at it. And I think those were the times where persistence and having a team which just believed that this is the future of what Indian procurement and supply chain should look like kept us going.
So Rahul, what were the lessons there? What inspired you to carry on doing what your dream was, to not let the other circumstances beat you down? What would your advice be to those tuning in?
So I would say that the key element is when you are playing as an entrepreneur, you are playing for a long haul. So I think it is very important that you believe in the vision of the future that you are creating. In our case, and most entrepreneurs, you create some sort of a distorted view saying that this is what the world should look like. In our case, this is how procurement supply chain should look like 5 years out, 10 years out. And I think if you truly believe in it, I think persistence has a huge value towards it. And I would say that persistence alone without sort of finding the paths, because there can be paths which can be leading to nowhere. So you need to continue to adapt yourself, need to continue to find paths that will actually enable you to continue to move forward. In our case, I think one of those fortunate moments was GST, which happened because pre-GST, it was very, very hard to operate the multiple state and center tax structures and therefore create national supply chain. So I think those moments in the journey of an organization are important because those enable you to really see that you are on the right track as a company and you can actually continue to create towards the vision that you have as an organization. I would say there are always, as an entrepreneur, challenges about motivating your teams. We are not in the most sexy sector. I would say manufacturing is not necessarily perceived as the most sexy sector. So I think there is we had to continue to motivate and hire a team which was passionate about changing and playing an important role as we transform this sector.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we've been primarily services based, and there's been a lot of focus at bring manufacturing back. I wanted to just ask you one other question. Now, there has been one phenomenon in 2021, and that is the original believer, the Tiger Global, once again, double downing on India. You're just one of the many startups this year which says you've got a big check. It was an existing investor. What's the larger game plan?
For us or for Tiger? For us, I think it's very clear. No, so for I think firstly, we have been fortunate to have Tiger Global on our cap table since 2019, and I think since 2019, when Scott took on the investing into India, I think he's been a big believer into the Indian ecosystem and the startups that will be created out of it. In fact, he has been a phenomenal partner and continuing to double down on what we are creating as an organization. Second, from our perspective, I think given we have been fairly capital efficient, but with a very, very large ambition, I think we look at this capital as our ability to continue to double down on creating infrastructure that is required for driving national sort of logistics and procurement supply chain organization, and continuing to invest massively into our technology footprint, as well as, I think, bringing many of the solutions and technology that we have developed into newer geographies across the world. I mean, COVID has been a little bit challenging for global expansion, hiring people, and so on and so forth, but I think we are very, very bullish on how Moglix solution can actually become an important solution for B2B supply chains of the future globally.
Rahul, before I let you go, one of my final questions. Yes, Moglix is about 6 years old. Your seed money, you've raised about $220 million in all in Moglix's history, but your seed money was from Axel Partners and Ratan Tata. How did you get an audience with Ratan Tata in it and a check from him? I'm sure there's some lessons there for others to learn.
So I would say some of it is serendipity. I think there is a popular saying, right, that if you are on the right mission, then the world can conspire to come along. So I would say somewhere I am probably a beneficiary of that. Early on when we started and we said, we are playing into a space which is at the intersection of manufacturing and technology. And we said, like, who would be the best person who can stand for this kind of a company that we are building? And Mr. Tata's name was clearly the number one on our priority list. And we managed to get an audience of 45 minutes with him. And I mean, this was still very, very early days of building Moglix. And we spoke about what we are trying to build. And I think he got excited about it and decided to write a personal check. And I would say to date, we continue to be inspired by what he has been and Tata Group has done for the manufacturing and technology, I think. So we continue to be very excited to have him as an investor.
Okay, I thought it would be interesting and some lessons over there. So you're a big believer of serendipity and a beneficiary of serendipity as well. I don't know if you're being modest when you say that, but Rahul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations again to you and the entire team at Moglix. Look forward to many more interviews.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, so that was Moglix, India's newest unicorn, the 13th new unicorn in 2021. Who said 13 is an unlucky number? Well, let's move on now and talk about the crypto world. So much to talk about what's happening in the metaverse, but we'll talk today about the cryptos. Volatility, the name of the game. Elon Musk, with his massive 55 million following on Twitter, continues with the flip-flops as far as Bitcoin goes. From first being such a vociferous backer of Bitcoin, allowing Tesla to even accept payments. A few days ago, he said it uses an insane amount of energy and Tesla will no longer be accepting Bitcoins in payments. After that, there's been further controversy because Elon Musk actually went ahead and liked a Twitter reply on whether on Tesla needing to divest its $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin that it owns. We still don't have a clear word as yet. He's also hinted whether he will ever look at a people's currency, his own version of a Dogecoin and all of that. Back home in India, also a lot to talk about. Bitcoins, what's the future? You've seen now prices hit about $45,000 for the first time in many months. You're also seeing WazirX actually go ahead and list the Shiba Inu coins in India. That's, of course, after the $1.4 billion personal donation from the Ethereum founder. So a lot to talk about, and Nischal Shetty is now joining us. How are you navigating this volatility? You know, like I remember last night when I was seeing the Bitcoin at about $45,000, I remember going to sleep at night thinking, if I wake up, will it be about 50,000? Will we see more tweets by Elon Musk? How will the rest of the crypto traders react to this? This volatility is never good for business. It's never good for the investors.
Look, I think on a lighter note, you'll get used to it once you're in this sector for a long time. But it's a new segment and it's a new asset class that is being built. And this volatility that you see is expected of any new asset class. If you look at the history of gold, for example, the initial 10, 20, 30 years of, or even more, when gold was being traded, similar volatility was seen. So it's not a surprise that a new set of asset classes, especially something that is global and so widely available. This is probably the first time in history that you have an asset class that is instantly, readily available globally. Doesn't matter where you are. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why you see volatility. And then you have large, you spoke about Elon Musk, you have large names entering the ecosystem who bring with them 30, 40, 50 million people to enter the same ecosystem. That again creates a lot of volatility. So, all you're seeing is market making right now. It's a new market that is being created, and we are in the middle of it. This is probably the first time our generation is experiencing that, which is why we are sort of startled and surprised. But, this is the history of how assets are made. Volatility in the beginning, as liquidity increases, as the market size increases, the volatility reduces over a period of time. And you've seen that happen in Bitcoin, for example. The volatility you saw maybe 3-6 years ago, it's far lesser now. If you compare it with more mature assets like gold, it definitely is higher. But I think maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, it'll probably come on the line of gold in terms of volatility for Bitcoin at least.
So you're saying that we better just get used to this, and wild swings will happen for some time now when it comes to the crypto world.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's just that every year it's reducing. So that's a good sign, and that's a strong and healthy sign. And the number of people in the ecosystem are increasing. For example, now I think there are over 150 million people who hold cryptocurrencies globally. This number was about 100 million, I think, a few months ago, maybe in 2020, it was 100 million. So that's a rapid progress, a rapid a number of people coming in. And this is causing all the volatility that you see. And then again, the news that percolates globally compared to any other asset class. The moment there is a news, we've seen that this news travels across the globe. It's not localized to a particular region or a country. It's global in nature. And that again creates either sell pressure, or when there's something positive, that creates buy pressure, again on a global scale. One very important thing to understand about crypto is, as compared to any other asset class, the prices are one, and it's global in nature, and it's a 24/7 market. So all of these things are really new for anyone to experience. And what we are seeing is just that new reality being set in right now.
What we've also seen is Ethereum co-founder donate about $1.4 billion in crypto. He didn't do it in Ethereum. He did it in another cryptocurrency. And after that, we've seen, WazirX also start listing the Shiba Inu coins. Tell us a bit more about that. Since the listing, what kind of traction have you seen?
Sure. I think first in the whole Vitalik, the Ethereum co-founder's whole donation that happened, I think the first donation he made, which was close to $1 million, was in Ethereum. And then he decided to donate all of the SHIB tokens that he's gotten as part of the airdrop, I'm guessing, which was worth $1 billion when he was donating. While people might say that it's in that token, but I think it's still a significant amount to donate. And the fact that it's coming to India and it's going to help the people of our country, I think that's a very positive move. Now, in terms of when we listed SHIP, the reason why we listed SHIP was because we saw a tremendous number of people asking us to bring that token and list it. Probably the donation played as a large catalyst in people in India wanting to, trade in SHIP tokens. And as soon as we listed, I think this was one of those largest opening we've seen for any token that we've listed on WazirX, which was very surprising. But I guess that given the sort of news that it's making, the news and the kind of people who are talking about it, I think that's added to this whole like a mass. Everyone in the country sort of seems to want to hold it or trade it at least in some amount. So it's a very interesting development. I think it saw something even more excitement than even Dogecoin in that moment when we listed.
What has been the traction for Dogecoin? We haven't seen it hit near that $1 yet, but the market capitalization is just so huge, and Coinbase is going to be listing that in the US, so that will obviously, make it more popular globally, I would imagine. But in India, what has been the traction? Nischal, we have to put it in perspective. The fact also remains, India has not legitimized cryptocurrencies. We don't know what is going to be in the bill, but the indications seem to be that it's not going to be in favor of these cryptos. Maybe India will just want its own Atmanirbhar digital rupee coin and all of that. You've got banks which are now apparently shutting down accounts of crypto traders. How's business been?
I would say, this whole segment has its ups and downs, and something this innovative always faces some roadblocks. We've seen this happen in the early days of the internet, where the initial days people used to say that it's just a virtual company who's going to value it, and people were surprised with the valuations that internet companies got. And today, some of the largest companies are virtual companies, and that's the same thesis that is being looked at in the digital or virtual asset space, where you might have physical assets today which are valued highly, but people believe that the future is about virtual assets. And this is also the reason why when we think about regulation, we need to look at what the global regulatory landscape is for crypto. And if you look at that, no country in the world, except for probably a couple of countries which are probably negative but not banned, no one has banned crypto. And the reason is because this is similar to the internet technology. If you ban it as a nation, you're going to be away from it, but the rest of the countries are going to participate and get ahead of it. So I don't believe India is going to go in that negative direction. And I think the other important thing to know is the number of people in India who hold crypto. That's about 15 million and growing. That's 1.5 crore people in India who hold crypto, some form of digital or virtual assets. And the value of these virtual assets held by Indians alone is about 15,000 crore plus. So that's a large market. We are not talking about a nascent market, but a really large market, which is growing rapidly. And I think this growth is being visible and it's being understood by our governments, our regulators. And I believe that the right kind of guidelines and regulatory clarity will emerge, but it's going to take time. It's not like any other country has done it. Everyone's trying to understand. So I'm not surprised that India has not come up with regulations. I think as an industry, we're pushing for them. We're pushing for guidelines. I think over time it's going to happen. But we are probably going in the right direction because as a nation, we've started talking about this. And I think that's a great sign.
Okay, so we are headed in that direction. Let's see. But WazirX quite candid in saying that the volatility in the crypto world is here to stay. Bitcoin at the time of this interview trading at about $45,500. Nischal, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us today live on this edition of Startup Central. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m.